Looks like we are live. Welcome everybody. I'm getting things set up still. So there was an important, what I consider a pretty important interview recently on Mike Hollow on a Mike Hollow stream that had Tom Brady on it as well. Um, I don't normally cover stuff like that other YouTubers are covering or have done and stuff like that, like we are going to be doing here today. Um, Usually, I just kind of do my own thing. But I feel like this interview that spontaneously happened with someone known as BloodCount, who's a former NRS designer. Designed a bunch of different characters for multiple NRS games from Injustice, or actually from MKX on. But also had some, you know, actually came in at tail end of Injustice 1. But yeah, right now I'm just getting things set up on the stream, and we will get this going here in just a second. But yeah, besides that, there's one other quick point of news to go over real fast, is that the YouTuber Super has unveiled that it apparently seems like the secret character fight, the Pink Ninja Floyd, is going to be coming to reality and actually be a thing in the game for real now, in the Conan the Barbarian update. So here in, here's coming this next week, right? I want to say on the 21st of this month, if I'm not mistaken. So that's going to be interesting. He doesn't have any idea. Here's coming. He doesn't really have any idea. That's some double audio there for a second. Any idea how he activated it, and didn't actually activate the fight yet, but like Floyd, like the prompt of Floyd's name came up, and so that's going to be interesting to see how, if we get to actually fight Pink Floyd and see how all that turns out to be finally here soon. But anyways, for what we're here for, let's get it up on the screen. There we go. So I have a list of basically timestamps of what parts I want to go over and stuff in this. So here we're gonna go with the start of it, basically the introduction of BloodCount. And let me know at all if there's any audio problems with like the audio levels.
I know Charlie said he's coming on in a minute too, as well. So
yeah, that's fine. I do want to bring BloodCount on because BloodCount actually used to work at NRS. So
okay.
he can't. I don't know if he's got like NDAs he can't break or whatever.
Sure.
So
Yeah,
obviously, if we ask him certain things, you could ask him. I'll let you take the floor, and I'll chime in. But he worked at NRS, so he can probably answer a lot of our questions. Just before I bring him in, EA again, thank you for the $5 donation. This is the logic of NRS fans right here. They don't have a point; they just argue for the sake of.
no.
I don't make personal attacks on people. Actually, have. I'm glad you came. Questions you want.
Yeah, can you hear me?
Yeah. Thank you for jumping on, bro. So
Yeah.
just before you get started, could you tell everyone who you are and what you did at NRS?
Yeah, I was a combat designer for 10 years at NRS. I was there from Injustice 1 to MK1, so including the MKX, MK11, Injustice 2 games. And
How did I not meet you in Injustice One, man? I was there for Injustice One, and
I remember you, Pig, Perfect Legend, Katana Prime, and a couple of others be flown into the studio, and you would do QA
Mhm.
testing in the one of the back meeting rooms.
The Subzero conference room.
Yeah, Subzero
That's where I was
conference room.
born.
Yeah,
Ironically, I did my testing in the Subzero conference room. Can't make it
yeah,
up.
yeah, and I popped in there during the MKX days, because in Injustice One I was still a junior per se, and I was working on those Star Labs missions, so
Star
I was
Labs with Brian LeBaron, right?
yeah,
You and Brian
yeah,
doing that?
yeah, that was some fun times with all the crunch. And yeah, but I just remember, and then when it went away, it's because Perfect Legend kind of walked around the studio on his cell phone, and I guess they weren't too happy about that, and so
Oh man, yeah, mhm.
that was kind of the reasons why they stopped doing that.
No, that's not true because they brought us back for MKX.
I want my gummies.
So this is where, this is who BloodCount is, basically the introduction for him. Hold on a sec. Sorry about that. Anyways, this is the introduction for BloodCount. He, he's a NetherRealm, used to be a NetherRealm designer. So, get into one of the first questions of interest here. Let's see. It's about right here.
Mortal Kombat. I have been for some time on Twitter and on YouTube.
Yeah.
Do you know if WB actually ties NRS's hands in terms of responding back to us?
I think so. I know that there are a lot of things that like Tyler just can't answer or respond. I'm not part of that department, so I can't really say to it, but I just know that like they are being looked at, but I don't I don't know. I guess they just don't want to say anything to get in trouble with WB or whatever. And sometimes it's just kind of like, but you are the community manager, so it'd be nice
Yeah,
if you
just
would
confirmation
communicate
here
with the
that,
community. And
just
not
confirmation
wait until
here.
combat cast, and even when you do the combat cast, you don't even really answer concerns or anything like that.
Yeah.
One
Are
thing I
they?
will.
Oh,
Oh,
sorry. Go on.
Yeah, just confirmation here, basically that the that WB just has like a stranglehold on the communication here, on like what they're allowed to do and not to do as far as putting out there on social media or talking to people. They are basically very controlling. They like to have a tight wrap on things, or at least feel like they have a tight wrap on things. And really, that's just kind of been known for a while that that's how they've been, or at least speculated, if not known. But just further confirmation right here of that.
Go on. Continue.
The one thing I will say right off the bat, just to squash that rumor, is no, the game was not supposed to be Injustice 3.
Okay. Because it's.
And this is one of the key points right here that, and one of the main reasons he jumped on with Mike Hollow, was to confirm or deconfirm that no, MK1 was never supposed to be Injustice 3, which I do find believable, but I thought that it initially, like very early production started as Injustice 3, but supposedly it never started as Injustice 3 ever and was planned to be Mortal Kombat from the get-go. And so there's going to be like a longer discussion they're going to have on that here, and I think it's pretty interesting. So let's listen to BloodCount.
Sure looks that way.
It does, but it's not. And we all thought we were going to do that, but I think Warner Brothers looked at the sales of MK11 and MKX, and then they saw the sales of Injustice 1 and Injustice 2. Plus, at that time, I believe the DCU movies were doing so bad or so poorly that they were just like, hey, let's keep the gravy train going with Mortal Kombat. Plus, I also think the 30-year anniversary kind of like helped nudge that decision as well.
Can I ask you a question about that then?
Yeah.
Why, if it's not so, if it wasn't supposed to be Injustice 3,
Uh-huh.
why does the game look almost like it's Injustice 3, and why are there so many characters that mirror DC characters?
um, you know, I know we definitely did a new engine, Unreal 4, because all the other games were in Unreal 3 that were heavily modified, and so a lot of the systems from Injustice do make it over to MK, and same thing with MK with Injustice. It's just there's a lot of like changes in the background and watering things down because it's Injustice and not MK.
Mhm.
And then when the new MK, like MK1 started, there's still some of that Injustice 2 stuff in there, but a lot of it's turned off or some of it's used. So like with MK11, I forget what the mode was called, but you could actually do the call in assist where they would just come in and do an attack and then disappear off screen.
Yeah.
So that actually was like kind of in Injustice 2, but it wasn't that robust. And so for MK11, they made it more robust. And then for MK1, they turned it into the cameo system you see today.
Okay, because the first red flag, because I don't know if I was the first one that said this, but I said it back in October 2023 that when I looked at Shao Kahn or General Shao, he looks like Steppenwolf to me. I put them side by side, and I was like, looks a bit like Steppenwolf. And then I looked at, like, when the characters load in and they sort of clash and talk
Yeah.
to each other, I was like,
Mm.
that looks like Injustice to me. And then I looked at Rain's design; it kind of reminded me of Aquaman.
Yeah.
I was the actual designer of General Shao.
Okay.
And
So what was because you can see the similarities between General Shao and
oh yeah.
Steppenwolf, right?
Yeah,
Was
so
it an inspiration?
a little bit. Well, the thing is I know that a lot of the concept art uh, gets outsourced to a really good studio, and they just kind of like, I don't know where they get their notes from. Maybe Ed talks to them or the art lead talks to them or whoever talks to them, and then they kind of like whip up what they're seeing in descriptions or whatever they get from NRS and be like, oh, here's what we think, here's Shao A and here's Shao B and here's Shao C, and then somebody at NRS, probably the character lead, is like, oh yeah, well, we could use that as the primary skin.
Like this is pretty interesting on how they, because I didn't know if this was how they did their character, designs as far like their appearances go. They basically outsource, like here's a description of the character, then some random artists at whatever studio they hire, they make the character as based off of the description, and we get what we get. Or well, then they do a few different ones from the sounds of it, and then they pick one of what they like, one they like the best, and pretty much get what we get. Uh, I thought it was done. I really thought the designs were more in-house. I know they used to be, if I'm not mistaken. I'm pretty sure that they used to be, and I'm talking about more beyond the 2D arcade era. But uh, maybe I'm mistaken on that. I'm wondering how long. I do kind of wonder how long have they gone with that approach, going outsourcing character art designs. But anyways, let's continue on here.
And overall, I think Ed does have final say on, like, oh yeah, that's what Shao's gonna look like, or oh yeah, that's what we're feeling for Scarlet, or because I was also the designer of Scarlet, so it's kind of funny when I saw the concept art of Scarlet. I'm like, why does she look like Amelia Earhart?
Well, let me ask you a question on Shao and MK11. Is there any truth to the fact that the reason why Shao has that dragon face is because the artist got him confused with Kintaro, and that you guys just didn't have enough time to redo the art?
That I can't confirm because I don't remember any of those discussions. I don't remember anybody
That was the
saying.
big talking point after the game was released, coming into
Mm,
MK1. Then a lot of that stuff started to come out.
no, because the main roster gets concepted first, and then later on, I guess they also concepted some, because obviously the first two cameos were always going to be Sub-Zero and Scorpion. Um, those are kind of always like the starting points for the game. Like when you're playing the bare bones of the game, Subzero and Scorpion are always your first guys to, like, do your vertical slice and whatnot. And Injustice 2 or Injustice was always Batman, Superman. So the whole Mintaro thing, I don't think so. And
Can
again,
can I ask you a question about? I don't want to stay on the Injustice thing too long. I was going to mention Omni-Man and Peacemaker, and that it looked like they were planned for something else, and then they got dropped in Mortal Kombat. But if you're saying it's not Injustice 3, then I'll take your word
No.
for it. But I do want to ask you something, and again, if you can't answer this, it's completely fine. But Cyrax and Sector being gender swapped, obviously the landscape and the climate in gaming right now is quite polarizing. There's a lot of discussion around DEI, and Cyrax and Sector were well known, obviously, in the MK community. When you guys were making the decision to gender swap them, were you guys aware of what people were saying online with other games that were doing this?
Yeah, I just remember, that's for sure. That's always being discussed. Like, hey, look what this game's doing, or hey, look how this game's getting blown up for this or that. I just remember when the concept art started coming in for DLC, and I saw Cyrax and Sector. I'm like, who are these people? I was like, why are they female? And so I don't know who made that decision or who told the concept artist, like, hey, this is the
direction
we're going. Because us in design, a lot of us are out of the loop because, like I'll say for Reiko, because I was the designer of Reiko. The concept art had him with that dagger, and I had already pretty much pictured like what I wanted to do with Reiko in my mind. And I was like, sometimes I'll look at the concept art and can kind of be like, okay, yeah, I could see that. But in reality, it's like, I'm the designer, so I'm going to design him the way I think he should play with our mechanics. Now, of course, Paulo or whoever would have the final balance and final say with frame data and what's a high and what's an overhead. But then I was just like, I started creating my move sets and all that. And then I remember Cinema coming to me because they have to shoot their stuff too. And they were like, oh, does he have any moves with the dagger? And I was just kind of like, dagger? Like, what are you talking about? And then I go back and look at the concept art and I'm like, well, what the fuck is a dagger doing on the side? Like, what is this dagger? And then there was like a backstory to the dagger. And I was just like, well, no, he's not going to use that. He's kind of more of a brawler UFC type with some WWE moves. And, my idea for him is he wants to get in close. Yes, he still has the throwing stars because that's kind of like a throwback to his classic design. I didn't really intend for him to be a zoner, but sometimes you just kind of have to give him something.
Roll with the punches.
Yeah, you got to roll with the punches. And also it's kind of like, oh yeah, there's a throwback to his MK4 thing. And then
that's called the Paulo Garcia special.
And yeah, so then they go and shoot their thing, and they come up with this stuff. Like, I think in the cutscenes he also had like these beat sticks, and I was kind of like, well, again, I wasn't going to give him weapons or anything like that, and it would have been nice to know like what were your ideas in cinema before I started coming up with my design moves. So then that way he at least have one or two moves with beat sticks, and then in the cinema scene he actually uses them. Or even that dagger, like maybe his forward throw or the forward throws are the cameos, but the back throw could have been like something with the dagger. But I already did a dagger with Deadshot, so I was just kind of like, eh.
Yeah.
Plus, I also did Leatherface with a chainsaw on the throw, so I was just kind of like, I don't want to.
Can I ask you a question? I don't want to talk too much about like monetization or whatever, because you're a designer, so I think maybe you're better suited to answer the questions that I'm about to ask you. Again, if you can't answer them.
So, I'm going to pause it right there real quick. That, it seems very apparent that there's a huge lack of communication across the studio of NRS. Not necessarily a huge lack of communication within the departments, but a huge lack of communication from department to department, to the point that's kind of ridiculous, because you should be, like, the designers should be talking with the art and story people. They should be knowing what's going on with that kind of stuff, so that they can design things accordingly. So everything kind of, makes sense and blends together well. Um, I've always thought it was kind of. I've wondered with Reiko, like, the dagger that he has and that, like, spear thing that he has. Like, he. They actually do have some moves, like, with the spear thing, like, that I've seen in Invasions mode. But they don't. It's not actually, like, moves that he can do when you're playing as Reiko. So it's just very interesting how how much of a disconnect there is between departments and how much that affects. And you see what we get. Reiko just doesn't use that stuff, and it's not really. I'm not blaming BloodCount for not using it. Like, he didn't know, and I'm not going to blame him for being like the source of the lack of communication. It seems like to be how they have things set up there at NRS, and just it's like everyone's compartmentalized in their own departments, and then where they all come together is only in the Ed Boon meetings, and only the top head people are really like communicating there. So, but it just seems like there needs to be a much more widespread communication and open communication between departments on what the hell they're doing, what the hell they're making, and what direction things are going in. Because otherwise, you just kind of end up with a random crapshoot and get what you get. Let's see. The next part was like a couple minutes up ahead here. Let's see.
What's going on?
I would do with that.
Let me ask you a question. When they're developing these systems, like the Cameo system,
mm-hmm.
Is there anyone there that raises the concern of the time and the budget to do something that's very experimental that you guys don't know how to do yet? Because it seems like MK has that wet and wild feel when it comes out, especially with the Cameo system, because they keep implementing things that they've never tested, don't know how they're going to do it. They don't really follow a system. They just keep changing it up. Are you privy to those conversations? How does that go? Does anyone raise concerns with, trying something kind of like off the wall with a limited time schedule?
Well, there are definitely meetings. We used to call them Illuminati meetings, just because like a lot of us designers weren't part of those meetings. It was mostly the leads, the lead designers, and then the other leads from the departments with Ed. And when we start getting the notes from those meetings, from our producer or whoever that took notes in it, there is kind of a little bit of discussion of like, well, yeah, we can take that system from MK11 that originally was an Injustice 2 and turn it into this like Cameo system. And somebody does get assigned to start rapid prototyping it as quickly as possible. And then that way you can start showing off like, after 2 weeks, here's the progress. After another 2 weeks, here's the progress. And then eventually it gets the green light to become an actual full-fledged system. Now, I know in design, like me and a fellow designer would say like, like, why are we doing a character assist mode? Like, shouldn't that be a separate mode, like kind of how tag was in MK9, which pretty much everybody wants back? And
are you free to like voice these concerns to Ed Boon, or is it just kind of like keep your head down, keep it moving?
A little bit of that, keep your head down. But I did, we would send emails to our fellow lead designers and just kind of be like, let's keep going on this track from MK11, and like I would always write up something where I would be like, this is what I liked about MK11, this is what I didn't like about MK11, so here's maybe what we could do for MK1. But again, like, even though you're like a mid-level designer or a senior designer, you're not really at that level of pulling Ed's ear.
Senior, yeah. So this is one thing that, and you can vouch to this, blood count. The beauty of guest testers is we are given significantly more freedom than like a designer at NetherRealm has. Meaning, where someone like them can't.
Okay, before Tom starts going off on here about this, it just kind of goes to show you blood count basically confirms that they kind of, they have to be kind of yes men to a degree at least, and they can't, they're basically going to be risking their positions if they're give too much pushback. Gotta be kind of like yes men, kind of stay in your lane, do your job, get it done. At least to a degree, it seems like you're able to at least talk to your leads and whatnot, but how much they listen and whatnot, this whole, like, even the designers, and I don't know if it's the majority, but it wouldn't surprise me if majority, if not maybe all of them, thought that this whole cameo system, cameo assist system being a bad idea, and that they didn't want it, yet something that they were having to do. I'm not even convinced yet that is like a Paulo thing, that like Paulo's all like, alright, yes, we're doing this for sure. I feel like this is an Ed Boon thing. I feel like this is an Ed Boon thing, that he's the one that pushed for this cameo system, that they had a prototype done. Once he saw the prototype, he was sold on it and pushed on it, got behind it and pushed it from there, and told Paulo, no, we're going to do this, let's make it happen, let's make it work, this is going to be our new variation system, this is what's going to replace the variation system, it's going to be great. Why do I think it went down like that, and that it's Ed Boon that really pushed for this cameo system? Because he likes each game to have its own gimmick, and this is the game's gimmick is the cameo system. So, I don't expect it to return the next game, especially with the bad feedback on it. If it were to return, though, I think it would be somehow drastically changed or drastically different than how it is in MK1, like function quite differently in some kind of way or something, I'm not sure. It just wouldn't be like, oh, here's the cameo system completely all over again. But I imagine they're most likely going to steer away from it. Anyways, let's see. This part up here.
Probably not. No.
Why is that?
Super. I know they like Super.
I saw him in the studio once. The Asian kid, what's his name?
Uncaged Games.
Uncaged Games. Yeah, he was invited once.
Oh, of course.
Can I ask, Blood Count, would they ever be open to having people in that are fans of the series but not fans of their recent work?
Hell no.
Ooh, probably not. No.
Why is that? Why can't they take criticism? Even when someone has honest criticisms for the game, why is it that they see it as like negativity or hate and they want to speak to them?
This is my question to you also, to piggyback off before you answer Mike Hollow. Is it or is it not true that there's a very yes man vibe around NetherRealm Studios? I always felt that when I was there.
Yes.
It seems to be the case.
Yes. I think it's also because of the sales and the reputation of MK that they're just like very prideful about it. I mean, you've got a lot of guys there that have been 25-year veterans, 30-year veterans, um, 20-year veterans, so I guess there's a lot of pride in it. And then when you look at the sales numbers, it's just kind of like, well, what the hell are you talking about? And it's like, yeah, but sales, you, it's kind of like Call of Duty. Like, of course there's sales, but look at the state of Black Ops 6 right now. Like,
So would you say, let's say MK11, at a certain point, even though there was a part of the community that was very unhappy at the end of the game's life, the fact that the sales numbers, plus the fact that your major content creators were saying that it's the best Mortal Kombat ever, do they just drawn out the majority of the negative feedback and say, well, who cares what they're saying? They're haters.
yeah.
The major content creators with 500,000, 1 million subs on YouTube, they're saying this is the best game ever. Who
Oh,
cares if people like Tom or Mike Hollow say it's not? And it sold 15 million. It must be the best MK ever. Do they do that and just kind of like
yeah.
ignore the negative criticism?
Yeah. I also remember, I think is when Killer Instinct was being made here in Chicago, because there was kind of like a
Apollo,
rivalry.
I know, hates Killer Instinct. Does not a KI fan.
Yeah. And a lot of our QA testers, when they're 6 months.
Yeah, so oh, hold on, I want to hear that part one more time a little bit. Like, go back here just a sec.
Kind of like, well, what the hell are you talking about? And it's like, yeah, but sales, you, it's kind of like Call of Duty. Like, of course there's sales, but look at the state of Black Ops 6 right now.
Yeah, see that they're blinded. It's like they've become blinded, at least partially, by the success that they've had with MK9 and then MKX and then MK11, just getting bigger and bigger and bigger, and making Mortal Kombat literally bigger than it's ever been in its existence, in its history. And so, to them, from their perspective, they're like, wow, Mortal Kombat's now better than it's ever been. We're doing it right. Let's just keep going. Well, now we have MK1. That's a huge, drastic contrast of level of success compared to the last three MK games before it. Um, they they kind of they just they've become blinded by their success a little bit and a little arrogant. It, I'm afraid to say they've become a bit arrogant. They don't want to hear the negative feedback, even though it's actual good criticism and good feedback that they should actually really look into and take into consideration. Um, I myself think MK1 is a fairly good game overall. Like, I don't think it's good compared to MK9 or MKX, and I think MK11 is even better than it. But I don't think MK1 is complete garbage. But you know, it's mediocre, basically. It could have been so much better in so many different ways, and the cameo system really does hurt the game quite a bit. Um, but more than just that, the game as a whole is kind of a mess. Uh, kind of always been a mess, kind of still is, and always will be a mess to a degree. But at the same time, I think there are a few good things, positive things that about MK1 still. But overall, yeah, it's definitely the worst MK game during the NRS era. But I really do wish and hope that they start to listen to good critical criticism from everyone, not just bigger YouTube people, but or bigger known people like Sonic Fox, but actually everyone, and not just like Tom Brady, but people like me, people like some of you that are listening and watching this. I just want them to actually listen. I mean, for example, for forever since MK1's come out, I've wanted a certain change with Reptile's force balls that I just want them to recover faster. Not necessarily I'm saying don't change them to go full screen or act like they had before, even though I would like that. I just want the recovery on them to be faster, so they're better in the mid-neutral. But anyways, I digress. What do we got for this next part that I want to go to here? I think it's about right here.
I also kind of wanted.
Sure.
Okay.
Do they? So if you have any type of like criticism at all, if it's not like yes, this is the best thing ever, do they kind of unofficially blacklist you?
Yeah, they kind of like push you aside a little bit. Because I remember saying like, I like with Reiko, I kind of wanted him to have a really cool like ability to chain combos or anything like that, and it just
See, like I was just saying, this is why people like the bigger YouTubers like Underdog or Uncaged Games or whoever, the bigger ones, a lot of them are more afraid to say negative things, and why they're more toxic positive is because they actually do know that they could get blacklisted, as in they won't get invited out and whatnot. And I myself, I actually have a relationship with WB, a very minor relationship, but a relationship nonetheless. And I think about that stuff even to a degree, because I don't want to be blacklisted, but I try to respect them. That's why I don't cover every leak here and there, because I try to have some respect for WB and my relationship with them. But there is some stuff I'll discuss here and there, and I'll give my honest opinions. Like, I like MK1 to a degree, but I definitely don't like it better than the last 3 games. And I recognize and agree with all the problems that people like Mike Hollow or MK Tom Brady, like what they talk about, they are. I agree with them at, let's say, 99% on what they talk about when it comes to MK1. There's some things I don't agree with them actually, but I do agree with them with a lot of things because they're right. There's this MK1 could have been so much better, and just the way they went about designing this game because of this cameo system and forcing it on us just ruined what could have been potentially, at least gameplay wise, the best Mortal Kombat ever. Something that could have actually been maybe better than MKX, but we won't know. Hopefully they learn from this, scrap this cameo crap, and in the next game the designers can actually make fully fleshed out characters and it's just one-on-one. Maybe have a tag mode as well, just for fun, like in MK9. That'd be great. I'd love it. Or even if they just did a pure tag team mode, I'd want each character, and that was like, instead of having a cameo system, it's like, okay, we're doing 2 versus 2. No 1v1, but it's 2 versus 2. Fully fleshed out tag mode. I would expect each character to still be fully fleshed out in that case as well. Anyways, let's continue on here.
just kind of remember like a lot of the moves also got changed. Like that's no longer an overhead, or it's no longer +5 on block or something like that. And you know, it'd be like, well, the cameo system will help improve that. Like, this is a way for us to like really push the cameo system because it could really extend your combos and blah, blah, blah. I'm like, well, I don't want to use the cameo to extend my combos. That's what I have a meter bar for. This is what I have this move set for. You know, I'm playing this character for high pressure and in your face. Like, I don't really need my cameo to come out and do that for me. Like, it's like I
Are
just
you?
Ask you a question: is there ever a joke with anything with the ice clone that I'm gonna hate it?
I think one time.
It was MK11. I think Stephanie, when they didn't put the clone in, mentioned something on stream.
Yeah, I think somebody in the design department was like, "Oh, Tom's gonna hate that," or like that's gonna really boil his blood.
That's
BloodCount, are
funny.
you okay to answer some super chats?
Yeah, that's fine.
Hey, I have
I mean,
one
I'll
more
try.
question for him.
Yeah.
Designers who make characters,
Mhm.
let's say Liu Kang. You obviously know Ninja Killer's going to want to pick him up, right?
I was the designer of Liu Kang.
Okay,
Yeah.
or other characters as well.
Mhm.
Do they kind of put the player that they have in mind when they design the character at all, or is it just solely based off the look and whatever?
No, I definitely was not. Like, I knew he picked him up later on in MKX. So when I was doing MK11,
Well, not X. I meant like, let's say 11 or an MK1.
oh
Let's say
no,
MK1. Because basically people have accused Sonic Fox of having his hand in the pot, which isn't.
no.
Okay, I was like,
Now he
which
can't.
obviously isn't the case. Anyone who's ever been there at all, even for a day, knows otherwise.
Yeah, I mean,
But I just wanted to clear the air. Is it even remotely possible? I know what the answer is, but I wanted to be clear. Is it even remotely possible that a designer can pick up like Joker and say, "Oh, I think this is going to be Sonic is going to love this, or someone's going to love that"?
No.
I know the answer is no, but let's just get it on the record once and for all to put that to bed.
No, that's for damn sure. No. Now, yes, he does tweet, and somebody could say like, "Oh, look what he tweeted," or "Oh, yeah, he pointed out this thing because he recorded a video on YouTube. We should take a look at that." But it wasn't like, "Oh, yeah, these two moves from Joker that I'm designing are gonna really kick ass for Sonic Fox." It's like, no, like
Is any validity to why is it if people more than Sonic release valid videos with concerns, but they will ignore it until Sonic talks about it? Why is that? Didn't used to be that way.
You know, that's a good question because, again, a lot of us designers just kind of kept our head down and just let Paulo or whoever deal with it.
That's a horrible problem. Let me just again say this. He is confirming that designers and permanent testers have no freedom to voice this isn't going to end well.
Well,
instead they are forced to say yes. Or
yeah, we can voice our concerns, and like I said,
but quietly, you have to do the chain of command, right? To
Yeah.
your designer.
Yeah.
You don't get to go to Ed Boon and say, "Hey, I've been voicing," and the designer can choose to ignore it, right?
Right. I mean, I could go to Ed Boon, but
It wouldn't end well, though, right?
Yeah, I mean, he always had an open door, but it's like I'm not going to go over Paulo's head or John's head or anything like that. Like, I would trust in them to like see my concerns and then handle it themselves. I think
that's the difference. The guest testers always had that ability.
Yeah. Plus, it always felt like, oh, that's so nuanced. Like, why bother Ed with that? I think some designers felt too. I know me personally, it's like, maybe I should really talk to Ed about this. But then I was like, nah, like have faith in your leads and go with them.
Oh no, you got to talk to Ed, brother.
Like you said, there's chain of command, and
yeah,
don't want to be known that I'm the one that if I don't get my way, I go over your head.
No, I understand that. But I just think that there are some concerns that are very valid that need to get to Ed or Apollo or be taken a little more seriously. Like the guy that says, "Why the F are we doing a cameo system?" That guy probably needed to be heard.
Yeah.
Can I just jump in 1 second? Just
Yeah. People should have maybe a little more balls and go be like, if you recognize that this is going to be a very bad, drastically bad decision, then maybe, I understand want to be respectful of your lead, not gonna try to go over their head, but you could try to do that if they're not listening and it's important enough of a problem that you really feel like it needs to be addressed. Then you do what you got to do, especially if Ed has a supposedly open door. Uh, just people need to have better communication. Ed needs to be communicating with everyone more, not just a smaller knit group of people. I think he needs to be talking with everybody more, probably. There just needs to be more communication. There really does. It's really crazy. Like, this gives me sad hopes for the next Mortal Kombat game, to be honest. Like, I have hope for it, that it could actually, the next MK game, whenever it is, will be, could be a good, a great MK game, could be potentially the best Mortal Kombat game ever, at least gameplay wise. As far as story and shit, I've kind of given up on the current direction they're going in with story and whatnot. That it's whatever. I just don't care. This isn't as far as the story and the lore goes, with what they've done, not since MK11 actually, with MK11 and then now with Chronica and all the time travel, BS. Now that we have multiverse BS, and with this new era, this new era they could have gone in a completely different direction and actually given us what we wanted, but they so completely did not give us what we wanted, and it doesn't even. I think the story mode, just about everything, is terrible. And it's not my Mortal Kombat as far as the lore and the story goes anymore, in MK1. I kind of just imagine them continuing on, though, from here with this new era stuff, and me continuing not to really care and just kind of like, all right, I'll watch it, play through it, I'll play through it and go along for the ride, and whatever. But at this point, until we have another like hard reboot that takes us back to the original story and make things just do things right, or we get back to the one singular timeline and the original timeline somehow, and at whatever point, that's what I want. I'm sick of this new era crap. This new era is just, it could have been great, but it's terrible. So it's beyond being able to be fixed. So I just don't care what happens in it, and I don't want to not care. The story and lore and the characters is huge reasons why I'm a huge MK fan. So it's just kind of sad to not care about the story and lore in this game really at all, because it's such crap and doesn't seem right. Anyways, I'm gonna jump ahead here. I think I'm gonna go back a little bit.
This super chat here from Blitches. Thank you for the
Alright.
$5 donation. He said, asking why NRS prefers slower gameplay over faster.
I think maybe there were some comments after MKX that internally that it was like too chaotic, it was too fast. You whiff one move and then you get completely punished and then you die for it. And so I think for MK11 it was just kind of like, let's slow it down a bit, maybe do some more defensive mechanics. Me personally, I didn't really like that, and having like 8 different wake up options in MK11 and having the 2 separate bars. I always thought, like, let's just keep the same bar system that we're doing. And and it kind of showed that, like, MK11 was definitely a much slower gameplay. The tournaments were less hype. Everybody was trying to get their fatal blows to do the comeback mechanic. And it was kind of like, well, the X-ray is there either A, as a humiliation, just to be like, yo, I never used my X-ray, so here we go. Or it's just like, yes, I've baited you into a good move, and now I can spend my bar to finish you off with my X-ray. But if it misses, I lose all my bar. So there's the risk reward. But with the fatal blow, it's kind of like, oh, let's put it on a cooldown. And it's like, no, like, because then it's just going to be fatal blow after fatal blow. And when you see the same fatal blow 30 times in a row in a tournament, it's like, all right, enough.
Yeah, no, 100. I completely agree with you. I have EA here asking who is responsible for giving Scorpion a non-exciting weapon with non-exciting moves. I actually do want to ask you a question about Scorpion. I don't know if you can answer it. Scorpion to me has always been like a very chaotic character in his design, and I felt like his personality. I know it's Hanzo in MKX and in MK1 it's Kwai Lang, but his personality has always been chaotic as well, and I felt like they expressed that in the moveset. But in MK1, he's like the most lukewarm character in the game. He's very boring. Whose decision was it to neuter Scorpion?
Well, the thing is, there's different designers every game for different characters, mostly. And I guess the designer that did Scorpion just figured that this is the moveset that they wanted within the cameo system, or like this particular move will go well with a cameo ambush or something like that. And so I guess it just all depends on the designer. And because Paulo doesn't really step in and be like, no, all this is shit, so let me do it myself. Like he gives you that creative freedom, and then he kind of does his balancing and workarounds the way he envisions how that move's going to actually be a high instead of an overhead, or and tweak the frame data and whatnot. But there are discussions like, well, maybe we should go back and give him a move. Do we have time in the mocap schedule or whatever to do that? And if not, like maybe we can like surprise people with like in one of the DLC patches he gets a new move or something like that. But overall, I think it also depends on like who's the designer and how they're feeling to do the character. Because like I'll use me as an example with Scarlet. It was just like, okay, yeah, she was using blood in MK9, but she was more of a Melina katana ninja that wasn't really using blood magic to the full extent. So then I was like, well, seeing the concept art and she's got this dagger, and me being a big vampire person, I was just like, okay, she's going to be a blood mage and she's going to use that dagger to cut herself. Actually, it was kind of funny where I actually had her slitting her wrist to activate the blood. And I started getting feedback, I think especially from Ed, where it's just like, yeah, we have to like have the animators move the hand down because we can't have her slitting her wrist.
See, so it sounds like they were able to actually see concept art during MK11 before actually designing the characters, but in MK1 it was backwards. They started designing the characters before knowing what they were going to look like. That's just, I don't understand why that happened. That's so weird. Just find that so weird.
In Mortal Kombat.
Yeah, in Mortal Kombat, it's a little too a little too close to home. So I think they had it have her doing her forearm, but I made sure that's like, well, she's a blood mage and you need blood to conjure weapons and conjure magic and all that stuff. So she needs to cut herself. And it was same thing with Leatherface, where that throw that he has where he shoves the chainsaw into your crotch and it's grinding you and spraying blood everywhere.
Yeah.
That actually was a special move, like a command grab. And I think it was Ed or somebody said to Ed, like, yo, that is way too graphic. That's too crazy. And then I ended up just using it as the throw, and it became in the final game. So it's kind of like, okay, well, I
Can
guess
I
there are.
ask you, before you answer them, because there's quite a lot of super chats that have come in for you, but I want to ask you something really quickly, because it's something that people have been speaking about since MK11, and it's the way the women are presented in the games now. Obviously, in the older games, especially the 3D games, they were very like sexualized, and in MK9, Melina had that crazy costume. And
Yeah.
even their regular costumes, you know, they were pretty, you know, they had their boobs out or whatever. And then in
Boobalish.
MKX to 11 to 1, we saw a massive shift with, like, I guess, more conservatively dressed. What was the conversations like in the office, and why did they shift away from doing those more outrageous costumes to what we have now?
Well, I know that they brought in a new character art lead who wanted to do a more realistic, because MKX was pretty dark and gritty graphic wise and model wise, while MK9 was kind of more archaic, in its design, its character designs. And for MK, so it's not so much with Injustice 2 because we have to go by DC. But MK11, the new character artist, was kind of like, hey, we're going to do this art style. And, I'm not in that department, but I think when concept art was coming in, they vetoed it and was like, no, we want to emphasize more on actual realistic body types than boobalicious women like Sonya and Melina and, from MK9 style, or MKX style, should say.
Mm.
Eventually that person left, but I think it kind of left a everlasting stamp where it's just like, yeah, even though we've got blood and guts and all this stuff, like at least when it comes to the women, you know, players are going to be more focused on like the actual moveset than their boobs. And it's like, okay, well, yeah, it's not DOA where we have jello physics, but you still need to have, what's wrong with having a sexy woman that can like beat the shit out of Scorpion,
Yeah,
like,
because we've seen Marvel Rivals has been like really positively
oh
received
yeah.
with and obviously we just saw, I think it was Invisible Woman, or she's been added to the Fantastic Four character, and
Oh
everyone's
yeah.
loving her.
Yeah.
And are the NRS designers aware of how people feel that they've changed the women's appearance? Obviously, some people like it. I don't want to dismiss their point of view on this, but a lot of people, and a lot of people in like the cultural war space right now, have been speaking about Mortal Kombat and the redesign of the women. Are they aware of the like negative reaction to, I guess, the covering up of the girls?
Oh yeah. Yeah. It's just, again, it's not their department. So, you know, the designers can't really go to the character artists and say like, no, like, what are you doing? Like, give her double D's instead of B's or whatever. Like, it's very compartmentalized where it's just like, that's their realm. Let them do their thing. Ed has final say, or Ed and his inner circle have final say. So, as a designer, it's just one of those things you just kind of like, well, okay, well.
Yeah.
That that's pretty funny though. Yeah, they. Oh wow. They whoever that lead designer there, that lead artist that came in that made this whole that started this whole thing with the more realistic look. Like, oh, I mean, we probably could figure out who it was looking at the credits of MK11. Well, were they a part of MKX too as well, or I'm not sure, but because MKX seemed like that's where it really started actually, but we didn't really notice what was going on until MK11. But maybe I'm mistaken. Um, but yeah, that's just crazy how much lack of communication that they have. Let's see here. I think skip ahead a few right here.
Way too many options here for the player. Like, they're not gonna, it's kind of like the up block thing, but it's just like, I think there's just too many mechanics that you're throwing at them, when this one particular mechanic or these two mechanics that have been in other fighting games and are normalized in fighting games is probably the way to go. And then that way you kind of keep the action going. And again, I think it's another attribute to like Paulo's designs, or the way he's thinking of how this like meter system works, or how this new system should
Did
work.
anybody there? Did you guys know in testing that you're going to get comboed for them breaking away. So they're going to combo you for you comboing them. Was that ever talked about? Or
I believe so. I think
Mike
Steph.
laughed at that because it sounds so stupid to say, but it's the reality of how the game.
Honestly, blood count. Like, obviously, I mean this with complete respect. Um, can you? Who came up with the breakaway system? Because I have never seen anything quite like that in my life.
I believe that was Paulo's design.
Hey, did no one say to him, bro, what are we doing here?
I think Stephanie in the past was very passionate, just like Tom. And then I think when things just weren't really being listened to or thought of or implemented, she just realized, like, okay, I'll just do my
Show the
thing
company
and
line.
yeah, and do my thing and make my own voice heard, like especially with the combat cast and all that stuff. But I remember those days where she'd go into his office and be like, "Yo, what is this? What's going on with this?" And eventually the door would be closed, but it's just like, wow, yeah, that's actually kind of cool that, because also it's an Evo MK9 player on your roster that, understands the game and, those nuances and edge cases and mechanics. And I guess, eventually you start to realize, like, well, I should just, go back to doing what I do in my department and,
Leave it at that.
leave it at that and keep my job and a paycheck.
Blood count. Would you? I'm gonna read out the next super chats, but
Oh, all right. Let's see. I got oh, hand couple handfuls of the segments I want to keep going through here. Let's jump ahead. But yeah, this discussion with blood count, I really think there's a lot of good insights throughout this. Obviously I'm not going through every single thing, but there is a lot that I am wanting to cover. Because I just think this is important for the community, and I know Mike Hollow's stream that he did here of it, he's going to have more views on that already than I'll ever have on this stream, but I'm just doing my part in, because I think a lot of this is newsworthy as well, and just insights not even on MK1 alone, but some on MK11 and MKX, so it's very interesting in general. Um, let's see.
Smart people.
Why do they recall? Oh,
Plus, the
retcon?
people that are still there kind of have been there a really long time too, so I don't think they'll ever leave.
fair enough. Eric, thank you for the £2 donation. Then Qatari Ninja Warrior, thank you for the donation, bro. He said, can you ask what are his and the team's thoughts about how the characters were unrecognizable in MK12? I think it means MK1, and also why they keep changing or removing the character's special moves or inputs. Yeah, I guess there's a lot of iconic moves that just kind of disappear over time.
You know, I just remember with MK1, it was kind of like, hey, you're doing Liu Kang, but it's a different timeline, even though it is still the fire god Liu Kang. But like, is there any way we could like spice up how bicycle kick works or fly kick works? And so that's why he now does like the dancing kicks instead of the standard bicycle kick, and he summons a dragon for his fly kick, and the fireball is now a yin and yang, red and blue type of thing. Um, Other than that, it's also just the designers thinking about their moves. But me personally, it's like I always try to like put the legacy moves in. I never got to do a Sub-Zero. Otherwise, I definitely would have always have Ice Clone in there. And
Can I ask you a question about Subzero? Actually, I know we've got Tom here, but there's another player called Sikander who I saw today. What I don't know if you know who Sikander is, but he was watching the combat cast where they were showing off Conan and they were showing off the new moves, and there was no mention of Sub-Zero again. And there seems to be some sentiment in the community that Sub-Zero is hated over at NRS. Did Tom help in Sub-Zero being hated in any way?
no, nice. Sub-Zero is not hated at the
Not at
studio.
NRS. He's hated by the whole community.
Okay, yeah. I don't think Sub-Zero is hated by the whole community. And he's not hated by. I don't think Sub-Zero is that hated. He's more loved than hated. That's how I would put it. Anyways, that how they. So I actually blood count. Like I don't have any. I don't mean like any disrespect to blood count, and I think it's awesome that blood count came on and has come out and spoke about what he's able to speak about. But I will admit that knowing what characters that he has had his hands in developing, and him specifically, he's the one that did MKX Liu Kang, MK11 Liu Kang, and MK1 Liu Kang. I kind of am disappointed. Like I'm not a huge fan of how he designs characters. I'm gonna say I'm not a huge fan of how he does it. MKX Liu Kang, like Liu Kang's one of my favorite characters in Mortal Kombat, and always has been one of my top mains until MKX. MKX is like the first game that I actually don't like playing Liu Kang. I like playing him a little bit, but he's not even like he's at best a casual main. I'll play him casually, but he's not even like in my top five. He's not even or like top 5 or 6 for me personally. That's just me personally. I just don't like how he feels in that game. Um, Whereas he was like my number 2 guy in MK9, and has always been like one of my top 1-2 guys in Mortal Kombat. Well then, MK11, I actually do like Liu Kang a lot more in MK11. I think he is. I I enjoy him so much more, but unfortunately, so I'm not gonna like think it's. I don't think it's really his fault, but I feel like the way I wanted to play Liu Kang in MK11, I actually can play that kind of playstyle and setup, but it's not what's meta with Liu Kang, so I didn't play that way with him because I felt like I couldn't if I wanted to actually win, you know. Um, and then MK1, I actually like MK1 Liu Kang more than MKX or MK11 Liu Kang as far as how he's designed. But at the same time, he does feel like uh, he because of how his special moves are redesigned. That's like the one thing that bugs me with him is how his special moves are redesigned. They feel too different. He feels like he's almost like a different character instead of being Liu Kang. I don't like how his fireballs are different like that. And the big ones really like the flying kick. I don't like the dragon coming for first. I like it visually, the visual of it, but I don't like the functionality of it. I wish it was just straight on flying kick, and I wish he had the classic bicycle kick, or at least if this dancing bicycle kick was like forward advancing, like the bicycle kick, but he's just like going in like a tornado or something while he's doing it. That would have been fine. I just I don't like how the dancing bicycle kick, dancing kicks, they don't. I don't like how they function. Basically, I don't like how they are personally. Um, and overall, it just Liu Kang doesn't. He kind of doesn't feel quite like uh, the Liu Kang that I want still. Like MK9 Liu Kang, basically. I want MK9 Liu Kang to be honest. But he does, like, but at the same time, I do see how he's what he's done with him, and overall, I do think he's actually did a good job playing Liu Kang. But in the same way, another criticism, Liu Kang is kind of gained the reputation of being not just a good character in the game, but and actually yes, a good design, but the most boring character in the game to actually play. The most boring design. So I feel like there's some things that definitely could have been done better there with Liu Kang in MK1. Uh, and I feel like he the made him his special moves overall. I see what he was aiming for and what he was trying to do, or what he did do, but I feel like he changed it a little too much to where it almost doesn't feel like actual Liu Kang. It feels like like a character like Liu Kang, but a different character.
And I read about
Let's skip ahead
Those
here a little
Not that
bit.
again, that's a designer's decision, and I guess however Paulo can tune it or balance it.
But I think do you legacy talk in the office, and like, I know they like to like change things up and innovate, but I think people get a little bit frustrated and the scene gets fractured because all the games are so different. Do they ever think about choosing a particular model, like maybe MKX that was beloved by many, or MK9, and sort of going with that, or do they constantly want to strip everything away and start all over again?
Kind of like strip everything so that each game is its own game. When I remember in Injustice 2, there were talks about like bringing over the exact same move set of Batman into Injustice 2 Batman with the same special moves, but then kind of giving them a little bit of a different twist when he meter burns it or something like that. And then for some reason it just went away and was like, let's just recapture the entire move set in mocap and, you know, new button configuration for his 1-1-2 combo or 2-2-3 combo or whatever.
Yeah.
I mean, I kind of did that with Liu Kang, like, because for MKX, I gave him that low, I think it's his towards 4, where he does the double kick, the low to high kick as a starter. So for MK11, it's like I brought that back, and then for MK1, I brought that back, but then there's a little different twist with the attack. It's not always the same attack animation for each game, but it was the same particular move. It's a two hit starter, you know, that goes low then high.
Yeah. I guess this the next super chat's kind of I guess similar. Like they're asking about Kung Lao again. I guess I know you know who Perfect Legend is, was not like happy with Kung Lao's design, and Just Swift donated $5 and said, "Can you ask him why Kung Lao's best moves are on his cameo? What was the decision to put the legacy moves on the cameo and these brand new
Well,
moves that they don't like on the main character?"
because I believe with the cameo system, it was a way to like bring back the retro style of a character, which is why you see like the older Sonya model and the older Kano model. Again, it always does come down to the designer who was doing Kung Lao and just figured like, hey, you know, new timeline, new Kung Lao, maybe I give him these moves, and then the cameo, which is supposed to be classic Kung Lao or retro Kung Lao, is going to do those other moves like the ground teleport and all that stuff.
Yeah. Okay. How often are coding roadblocks like infinites?
Not very often with the newer systems, because each game had like less and less of those issues. But I know that like I think Ghostface had some sort of infinite. I think that all just really comes down to like when Paulo is balancing it or polishing stuff, that stuff gets mixed around or something happens that was overlooked or whatever. And but in general, like when I put a move set together and I do the initial frame data and I play the heck out of the character in practice mode, or you know, ask the QA tester like, hey, can you do this and that for me and let me know what happens, or a video of showing it, and then I can see like, oh, okay, that's why there's a little bit of a gap there, or there's a block stun, you know, block stun infinite or something like that.
Okay, and are you okay to stay in the call whilst we bring other people on, or are you busy?
I have one more question. Did anybody there during test realize, hey, when the game comes out, every character is going to use Cyrex almost?
Well, I left before that, but I know that I'm pretty sure that probably was discussed. I just don't know why that happened or why that particular move,
That
was.
just seems something that's so obvious. If you didn't catch that on QA, you shouldn't be doing QA.
Well, I will say that a lot of the QA testers nowadays there are not hardcore like Stephanie. Um, some of them did leave to go to other studios to get out of QA, which kind of sucked because they knew the game. Now there's still like 2 or 3 guys there with Stephanie that are still.
Oh yeah, I bet there is, huh? Right? I'm just joking. Uh, yeah, this is pretty crazy. How like I don't know. I just can't get over how they can't frickin' communicate better and have better communicate between departments. Ed communicating with the design team at least better. Like I don't know. It makes it seem like Ed just doesn't care at the end of the day. Like he just like, okay, I want this. I want the cameo system. I'll make it work. Like great. Let's see here. Go about. We'll go about right here.
For you. Someone's asking, will cameos be back in the next title? I think we all know that's not going to happen. That's not happening, bro. But thank you for the donation.
Yeah.
And then we've got Smash Hero, the 1075. Thank you, bro. He said, loves the content, and he wanted to ask you if he'd like to see some of the single player content like Motor Combat or Puzzle Combat return in a future title.
My name is Kirsten Penalosa.
Yeah, I mean, there was discussions internally like, hey, what's some modes that we could bring back? I mean, obviously like Tester Might like made a comeback, and I guess they didn't really want to do those old modes just because I guess they might think it's a little silly or it doesn't fit what they're trying to convey with like invasion mode. But yeah, there were discussions of like, because I know one particular designer that's still there, like he's a huge chess player and he would love to see the chess combat come back, and he definitely would be
I would love that.
he definitely would be
when
the
there
right
was-
designer to do it.
When there was when Invasions was being made,
Mhm.
was that just a bad idea that didn't matter, or was it just development time was low, didn't have any single player content, and Invasions was the best they could do with a short period of time?
Well, invasions mode had been discussed for a really long time, and I think for MK1 they wanted to try something a little different than just your normal Towers of Time and multiverse. And uh, what was it in MKX with the towers? Test your luck. Test your luck. That's what it was.
Oh yeah.
Yeah, so they wanted to try something new, and then that old idea of doing like the Mario node thing, I personally was kind of like, well, that kind of is like Star Labs where you're limiting the player to complete each node one at a time instead of giving the freedom to go around and picking which nodes they want to complete for the rewards and the crystals and all that stuff. Instead, you're forcing the player to do one after another, after another, and after another. And I actually did the modifiers for Test Your Luck and Injustice 2 and MK and a little bit of MK11 when Designer left and left a whole mess when he left. But when I wasn't part of Invasions at all. I was purely characters and the little nuances like fixing fatality cameras and all that stuff. But when I started seeing some Star Lab stuff in there, I was just like, what the hell is this? Like, nobody's going to find that enjoyable. And then I saw one where you could just like stand in a particular spot and you'd completely survive the entire wave. And all you had to do was stand in that one spot. And so, yeah.
Okay. I've got two more
Yeah. Invasions mode is crap. It really is. Now that we're on our second cycle of going through it, I don't even care to finish it through it. To be honest, like, I've already gone through this before. What's the point? To get these skins? What skins? What skins that actually matter at all? I don't care about any of the skins. Now, I will say actually, like the Natara season that's coming up next, uh, there'll be new like Natara. You know, we'll get those skins for like the DLC characters that weren't around back then. So that is kind of cool. That because the Natara's season skins are probably the best ones in my opinion, or at least some of the best ones. Um, let's see. But also though they were let me see go back. They were talking about the chess combat. Dude, I love chess combat. I mean, in MK Deception, chess combat was semi broken. Um, because meaning that like technically you could win you could just win the match and be done and over with in 2 moves. Now, did you have to win the fights and stuff and like have the right execution of like how what you're doing? Like yeah, like but technically you could win any fight in 2 moves, like any match, really easily. So it would definitely I wouldn't want to see chess combat come back just like it was in Deception, because it wouldn't be as there's things that could be abused with how it was designed that wouldn't make it as fun as it should be. So a overhaul like redesign, just complete redesign of it from scratch would probably be best, and it'd be I'd really like to see what they could come up with. Um, I'd love to have MK Chess, Chess Combat back. Like that was awesome. I think it was called MK Chess, not Chess Combat. It's called MK Chess. So that is the actual name. Uh, I want some MK Chess back. That is like my most wanted side mode in a Mortal Kombat game. I just think it would be a lot of fun and be able to play online against people, and actually just make it more like real chess with like some MK twist on it it would just be great fun. um, I really hope they have a designer in there in the studio apparently on the team that wants it, and sounds like he would be a great person to design it. Hopefully he can get it greenlit sometime in the future game. That'd be awesome. Like, because him being there and him wanting it really bad kind of means there's actual real hope that that mode could come back someday.
Whoever can specialize to bring that hardware and that code and that engine stuff to a Nintendo Switch and to a PC with, I guess, minimum specs or
Yeah.
whatever type of specs.
Okay. And the last super chat from Just Too Swift. Thank you for the $5, bro. He said, Mike asking why not build off the duelist stance switch from MKX and use it for his blue and red flames for MK1 Liu Kang.
I thought about that because I actually did like the duelist stance, although I know there were some stupid moves in there that I actually tried getting rid of, like his healing thing. I guess Paulo just has something against healing in the fighting games because it actually did a different thing with the healing. But yeah, I kind of thought about that, and that's kind of where it kind of came from with the red and blue flame, where it's kind of like the light and dark thing. But again, it was like, oh, it's a new timeline, and oh, it's a new way of putting a spin on some legacy moves like bicycle kick and fly kick. So I was just kind of like, well, wouldn't it be cool if you had the red and blue flames for his fireballs? And so that's kind of because also you notice that it's a yin and yang thing that comes by, and what was on the ground when he changed duelist forms,
Mm,
a yin and yang sign. So
yeah. Okay. Well, I know you text me saying you need to head out.
Well, honestly, that variation, the duelist variation, it was the one I liked the least, if I remember right. And as I said before, MKX Liu Kang is like actually the one Liu Kang that I don't really like playing. Like I'm not I like Liu Kang in MK11. I like him in MK1. I don't like him as much as I would like to like him because he's not actually one of my main top mains in either MK1 or MK11. Though MK1 maybe I would say I don't know, he might barely make my top 5. I don't know, it's hard to say if that. Yeah, maybe not even if that actually now that I think about it. Maybe. Well, yeah, I don't know. But anyways, I just I will say even though I don't really like the way BloodCount designs characters, just based off of what characters he has designed and how I feel about them, and how majority of the characters that he's designed aren't characters that have actually vibed with me personally, and that have attracted me to like stick with and actually main and be one of my main characters. Um, at least I think there's one character in MK1 that he couldn't remember for some reason. Can't remember uh, who the sixth character was that he designed for some reason. But Liu Kang, I do like, to a degree. I actually do like how Liu Kang is designed in MK11 and MK1, so I do like that much. And but the one I actually do like quite a bit that actually he did hit with me is Scarlet. I like how he designed Scarlet quite a bit, but I guess he wasn't meaning for her to be a zoner, what seems weird because she seems designed specifically to be a zoner. Like this, like the, I don't know how. I don't understand how his vision of her, how she was supposed to play, and how she turned out, and it ended up being different. Like how he didn't see how she was designed, how she wasn't going to end up being a zoner type. I don't think she's a per zoner type, but that's definitely a strength of hers in that game, is being more of a zoner in a game that doesn't have a whole ton of zoning. It has just a little bit pretty much. Um, where are we at here though? I'm gonna jump ahead here a little more about here.
What we did, it didn't happen. And now here we are again. And we know it's not going to happen in this game either.
About right here.
A question about this. BloodCount, do you know how these things go down in the office? Like what we saw with MK11 and I guess MKX as well, where they get to year 2 and they sort of pull the rug. Is that something that you guys know is going to come, or people in the office know is coming, or do they just walk into the office and say, it's over?
well, there's definitely discussions of like, okay, we're doing KP1 and definitely plan on doing a KP2 and definitely plan on doing a KP3. What Ed says on Twitter is whatever he wants to say, but we as actual workers and designers is just like, okay, we know that we're going to have this DLC schedule, which is decided well in advance because, again, we have to schedule mocap actors who are part of a union, and you have to get their scheduling because they're doing TV shows and movies for Marvel and Star Wars and all that stuff. And same thing with KP2, so that's also decided in the future. As for MK1, I can't really speak on KP3, but
Yeah, like I kind of could have confirmed all this as well. That so I've known for a long time that everything is already predetermined from the get go. So everything with Mortal Kombat 1, like the fact that who the DLC characters were going to be, um, who the fact that how they were going to release them, the plan to release them, how they were going to come out with Chaos Reigns and the expansion, and what the plan of what that was going to be, all that was planned out ahead of time, and even this Combat Pack 3 was planned out ahead of time, but doesn't mean necessarily everything's made way out in advance per se. But for example, they didn't have if Combat Pack 3 was made already, then there's no way that it would have been canceled. They would be releasing it then and get as much money as they could for the work that they've done. But since it hasn't been developed actually, like the characters haven't actually been designed and made, then they're like, nope, scrap it. We're not doing it. At least that's what the rumor is, which I do believe, but we shall see. I guess time will tell on that. But I do feel like my gut tells me, yeah, let's not expect a Combat Pack 3. Anyways, let's continue on with Blood Count here. There's a good little stretch here, that I like. That I think there's some pretty good stuff from. So let's continue on.
But I know for like MKX, there were definitely discussions for it. Same thing with Injustice 2 technically had 3 combat packs. We just kind of rolled it into one big, like everlasting combat pack, where the characters were coming out like every month or every 2 months, I think. But for MK11, yeah, we were definitely planning for like way more support, and I think that was a Warner Brothers' decision to just be like, okay, let's go on to the next game, and it is what it is, and then you just got to keep doing what you're doing, and Paulo will do the patches and patch notes and all that stuff until he's told like, okay, that's it, that's the last one.
I don't know if you can speak on this, and I wanted to ask you this because I know you have to go soon. But was there a feeling? I know you said that you left before it shipped, right?
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
So you wouldn't have been able to tell us if there was a feeling in the office that MK1 was going downhill and it wasn't going. Like, is the rumor? Do you think there's any validity to the rumors about Combat Pack 3 being axed?
With us also being full remote because of the whole COVID thing, and then also employees being like, no, I want to stay remote. Yeah, in design, because again, I do have friends in animation, other departments, but I'm not like picking their brains or talking to all their people. But like in design, I personally felt that, yeah, the game is not going to do well. Nobody asked for an assist fighter. Also, when my other lead left, I really think design kind of lost its personality. We had our toes stepped on a bit from other departments, and we kind of lost a lot of say and power, I guess, because at the end of the day, the people that were crunching till midnight and Saturdays and Sundays, Sunday through Saturday, and again and again and again, were the designers.
Mm-hmm.
Especially Paulo, he would sleep in the office, God bless him. And, we put in a lot of work. So we kind of felt like, well, we're the last line of defense because the designers are actually controlling like how the players move and the frame data and attacks and how throws work. And this is a high and this is a low and this is an overhead. But once that one lead left, it was just kind of like, because he was a big driving force for us, especially in the Illuminati meetings. And I just kind of felt like, yeah, the golden days are over. You do have to bring in new hires from time to time to keep fresh blood in. But the problem is the new hires that were coming in are not hardcore fighting game people, and they're just kind of there to do the job and learn and get that AAA credit and hopefully move on. And, again, with it being remote, I kind of got the sense from other people that they were just kind of doing the job that they have to do. But to be honest, it's like 95 or 90% of the studio doesn't even like play the game. They're just there to do the job and, keep a roof over their heads and food in their children's bellies and all that stuff. While the other 10%, like the Stephanies and a couple of the other QA testers, Derek in design.
Uh, Pause there, professors. You know what? I had a scary thought here. I really honestly feel like until someone else on the inside can actually confirm that this isn't true, I feel like this whole cameo system is Ed Boon's fault mainly. That he's the one that really pushed, that he was like, all right, I like this idea for this is going to be the next gimmick for this game. And he's the one that pushed for it. And maybe Paulo, just speculation, but maybe Paulo tried pushbacking, getting some pushback on it, saying, hey, maybe we shouldn't do this. And Ed was like, no, let's do this. This is what we're going to do. This is going to be the selling point of the game, cameo system. What if, my scary thought is, what if Ed Boon decides to be spiteful and force the cameo system in the next game as well, and convinces like the higher ups of WB, like, oh no, it's not the cameo system's fault, it's blah 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 blah, and he tries to force it on us out of spite. Like, I'm just saying I really hope that doesn't happen. That's a scary thought. I don't know if Ed Boon is a spiteful person like that. I really hope he isn't. But I don't know. I guess, we'll find out with the next game. But, oh my god, I really hope they don't have the cameo system return. I really, really, really don't. I really don't. And if it does, the only way it's going to be acceptable is if it's a side mode. That 1v1 is the main thing, and be like, oh, you can do this cameo assist thing that you don't have a different roster for, but you just use, pick another person from the roster to be your assist character. Okay, but then at that point, why don't you just make it a tag mode instead of assist? You know what I'm saying? So yeah, forget this whole cameo assist bullshit. Please, Ed, please, just forget it. 1v1 and 2v2. Give us those two options, and let's just have some damn fun again. You know what I'm saying? Let's just have some fun. That's what we want. We don't need any other gimmicks. We want fully fleshed out characters. We don't need variations that make these characters less fleshed out. We need one-on-one, just fully fleshed out characters that function, that have options to take care of things in any different scenarios that they could be in, so that the game comes to skill, game knowledge, reactions. You know what I'm saying? Just come on, Ed, please, let's go back to, like, even with the variation system in MKX, characters were way more fleshed out than they are right now in MK1, and that's ridiculous. And it seems to be, based off of what BloodCount said, the main reason why they aren't super fleshed out is because of this whole cameo system, and you having to make these characters designed to accommodate 16 different cameos. It's like, fuck, dude, what the hell?
Are definitely playing the game and same with Paulo and balancing it and all that stuff, but
would you say there's a lack of passion in the office?
I
Then
was going to
for
say the
Mortal
same
Kombat?
thing.
Oh yeah.
Yeah, because
I-
Mike has brought that up, that it feels like there's a lack of passion, whatever,
There's-
soul in the game. Is there a lack of passion and soul in that office?
For some people in other departments, like one of my friends when I was there in character art, he definitely has a lot of passion and loves what he's doing. I personally think he should have been made the lead when the other lead left during COVID. In animation, I think there's definitely a lot of passion there. The only problem is that so many things got outsourced that it comes back broken, and then you try to get them to fix it, and then it comes back even worse, and then they have to do it themselves, and then it's kind of like, well, why didn't we just have them do it themselves and not waste all this time and money? And I do think that there is a little bit less passion in the studio, but again, I haven't been there in 2 years, so I don't know. But also, they closed the mobile division, and that's kind of sad, because I remember, we expanded the studio to accommodate that division.
All the way in the back, I remember.
Yeah. That eventually got. There's even an upstairs too, and now all those people are gone, and it's like a ghost town.
That's quite sad to hear. So, do you think going into the next Mortal Kombat game, given what's happened with this one and its poor reception, they might look to bring in new people that understand the franchise and maybe want to play it? Because it's a little bit concerning to hear that they're putting out a game and 90% of the office don't even know how to play the game or don't have
I
the
will
care to
track
play
you
it.
down to the ends.
That's one of the problems in the game industry, is the fighting game industry, or the fighting game portion of the game industry, is so nuanced that nobody really wants to commit to it. And I'll tell you, you definitely get pigeonholed, where I was having a really tough time with even studios like Insomniac or Respawn, where they're like, oh, impressive resume, and you've worked with mocap and tune moves, like especially at like a God of War studio. And then they're like, oh, but all your ship titles are fighting games, and we make action RPG games. Your combat design is different than our combat design. And then when you actually talk to them in the interviews, it's like, no, the work that you're actually doing on Jedi and God of War is the exact same thing I'm doing on fighting games. The only difference is mine is on a fighting game and yours is in an action adventure.
So blood count kind of goes on a little bit of a tangent there, actually. I want to keep this mostly like some newsworthy topics. That's why I'm doing this. I don't normally cover like other YouTubers' content or stuff like that typically, but I feel like a lot of this stuff was noteworthy and very interesting and newsworthy, and I just want you guys, I want it to be heard. You may have already seen it, already have over on my colleague's channel, then God bless. But for those that haven't, here's some of it. Go over to my colleague's channel, look up on his streams, you'll find it. It's about, the whole stream's almost 8 hours long, and the whole thing is great. So yeah, 8 hours long, not 8 hours of blood count, but the whole stream is about 8 hours. The whole stream itself is damn good for the most part, so I highly recommend checking out the whole thing, and even watching it, even if it takes you a whole week to watch the whole stream, the majority of it is well worth it. But I wanted to go over a lot of key moments of blood count, that at least what I felt like were key moments of stuff that he talked about. But we're going to be taking a quick break right here. I am going to be right back, and so I'm going to get some tunes going for you, and I will be right back, as I said. So let's see here. Alright, so I am back. I had to grab a drink, do a couple break things there, you know what I mean? Power up with some of that Powerade. Alright, let's see here. So where were we at? Alright, so the next part I wanted to go to was jumping up ahead here a little bit more of the ways. About right here, I believe. Yeah. So this is going for about 8 minutes here straight that I think this is some good conversation. So let's
Stay in
Blood,
the States.
Bloodcount, can I ask you a question? This is going to change gears just slightly. Can I ask you about the decision to have Megan Fox as Nitara? What was going through their mind? Because I imagine you probably paid her a lot of money to do that. I don't
I
know.
was the designer of Nitara, and I was pissed.
Hmm.
I don't know who made that decision. I know the Ronda Rousey thing definitely didn't work out, but I think they kind of feel like, hey, if we keep on this like celebrity trend, that could kind of
see. He's designed Nitara. Nitara is a character I was very, very much looking forward to in MK1, and because I'm just a Nitara fan from Deadly Alliance, this is her first proper actual return, and so it's been a long time, been over 2 decades, 21 years for her to return, right? Properly, not counting Armageddon. Um, Even if you do count Armageddon, it's still been a hell of a long time, right? So I feel like I like a lot of her design. I like how he design in I like the 8-way movement and the air movement and stuff. I like a lot of how her design is, but overall, I felt like she was very weak, and I don't like how she actually there's things about how she's designed that's kept me from actually wanting to play her as much as I wish I would. Though the changes that they've made with her since Chaos Reigns update and stuff, I haven't actually gone back and played with her since she got her new updates and whatnot. So I've been thinking about maybe I should go back and give her another go. But as you'll hear here in a sec, BloodCount actually goes into how it sounds like he had design ideas for Nitara and how for her to play in certain ways that she actually doesn't end up playing. So I don't know if necessarily maybe it's not that I don't like how BloodCount designs things. Maybe I do like how he does design things actually, for the most part, or at least to a degree. But maybe it's the thing that Paulo changes about his designs that I don't like. Maybe Paulo is actually the problem. Maybe Paulo needs to go. Maybe I don't know. Is Ed the problem? Is Paulo the problem? Who the fuck is the problem, dude? Who's the fuck is the problem? I feel like it might actually be Paulo. I feel like maybe Paulo needs to go. And without John Edwards there, maybe things are just bound to be, have maybe have low expectations would be the best way to go from here on out until they get somebody else up in there as a head lead designer, at least working with Paulo or instead of Paulo. I'm not gonna say that maybe Paulo has to get gone fired, but get somebody else up in there to help at least this. I don't know, but then again, I'm not sure if Paulo is really the one to blame, or if it's maybe Ed's pushing to have some certain things be certain ways. As far as yes, there has to be a cameo system, or if Paulo's like, hey, what about this cameo system? Yeah, I think this is a great idea. We're gonna do this. I don't know. But yeah, let's continue on here. I decided like it's just Natara. From what blood counts we'll get into here, if Natara was actually played more like how he envisioned, then I think I would have liked Natara a lot more from the get-go on how she played. But yeah, but real quick here, the whole Megan Fox thing. I know I'm in the minority. I actually like that Megan Fox did it. It doesn't bother me. I think she looks fine. Um, I think she sounds fine. Like, I don't know. He gets a lot of hate. I'm not like a big Megan Fox stan or anything like that. It's just, I understand why a lot of people hate her. I don't know. Megan Fox doesn't bother me. It's just, I don't know, for some reason it doesn't bother me. I actually kind of like it for Natara. Like, that's whatever. It doesn't bother me. But there is something that Blood Count will go into that I'll just say right now real fast. How he was hoping Natara wouldn't have her wings in this iteration. I would have been pissed off if she didn't. As a Natara fan, I'd have been like, what the fuck? Really? But it would have ended up being whatever because this whole new era shit. But I would have been like, God damn it. How are you going to have Natara without her wings? You know? So I'm very glad that they kept the wings, actually.
Kind of like draw
let's
some
continue
people
here.
in, maybe some casuals in, and then I don't know. This is kind of like where NDAs may come in, but it's like when you started hearing the audio files for both voice actors, you're just kind of like, why isn't Jennifer Hale not doing the character? Like,
Yeah.
why, why is Rousey doing this? And why is, plus also with Megan Fox with the whole like vampire stuff that,
Yeah, that was weird.
that she and Machine Gun Kelly do. I was just like, no.
Did you do Sonya and MK11?
No, I did not.
I feel like Sonya and MK11 is just a living example of something that Mike Hollow talks about all the time. You look at Sonya's cameo, for example, in MK1. What moves do you see? Leg grab, square wave, things like that, right? Dive kick, right? And you also in her lore you have cartwheel. MK11 had no cartwheel, no leg grab, none of these, no upwards bicycle kick, none of her like legacy moves. Her leg grab is probably the move she's most known for. She didn't even have it in MK11. And my other question is, did you guys ever joke that she's more Ronda Rousey than Sonya Blade? And if so, why did not somebody make it that if she got kicked in the face, it takes 100% of her life and she's knocked out?
Well, again, there was a different design. There was a different designer for MK9, MKX, and MK11. So the MK11 designer, I guess, decided to do the moves that he felt that he wanted to do.
Who decides that? Like, because you're saying, so you did certain characters in MK11, but then in MK1 you did a bunch of different characters. So who does? Is it just kind of like potluck? Like, wouldn't it make sense to kind of keep the same designer with the character to involve on the character? And is that? I just thought of this now. Is that the reason for the clean slate feel in every game, that they just kind of make a new designer every time?
Pretty much. I mean, there usually would be like a casting call, be like, hey, who are some of the characters you really want to work on, and who are some of the less characters you want to work on? And you would actually do like a ranking of 1 through 25. And sometimes you would get that 1 through 3, but most of the time you'd get the middle, and then sometimes you get the bottom. And then that way, I guess you kind of get a.
You know, all this makes me want to know who the fuck designed Reptile in MK1. And what the fuck is wrong with them? Why they design Reptile the way they design Reptile in MK1? Like, I've had he halfway feels like a Reptile properly, right? Only halfway, really. I'm like a Reptile specialist type of player. I would say I would qualify as a Reptile specialist. That he's a character I've played at the at the highest level for fucking, let's see, 15 years, something like that. So, I mean, MK1, well, nowadays, I don't necessarily play at the highest level anymore these days in my older age, but still, I'm capable here and there, but I'm still a reptile specialist. It's I don't understand. So I'm able to make things work with him in MK1. Players. There's a few, handful of good players, other good reptile players that can make things work with him and win occasionally. But there's things like with his force ball, him not having the acid spit like the normal classic acid spit, like he doesn't have his slide and says this freaking crocodile thing, like this crocodile death roll thing. Like I don't know why did you do that? Like so he does still feel like reptile proper, but improper because he only feels that way like halfway. He feels very watered down. Basically, it's reptile watered down. Like here's a very watered down version of reptile for you. I don't understand. Why did you design, whoever designed Reptile, why did you design him like you did? They've made him improvements on him through updates and whatnot, and he is a bit better, like not as bad as he was, but he's still, a lot of the things that didn't feel right are still there, like with his design, compared to how Reptile was in, let's say, MK9 and MKX. Which, there really should have been more, I feel like Reptile should have felt more like MKX Reptile, closer to that type of style than he does in MK1. He just, I don't know, there's certain things that he doesn't feel quite right to me, like, it's like there on the board, like right there on the fence, you could say. Anyways, let's continue on here.
That people get a feel of like they are able to do different characters. Now, I did Liu Kang and I wasn't there for MK9, but I was Liu Kang MKX, Liu Kang MK11, Liu Kang MK1. But also for MK1, we also
and coincidentally, let's just point out Liu Kang is one of the characters that most people still can gravitate to. You see Ninja Killer, who played him in MK11, an X, and he still speaks fondly about playing Liu Kang in MK11. So we see a lot of that, where Liu Kang is probably one of the better made characters if you go from X, 11, and 1.
Yeah, I know for MKX because I was an associate during that, so he was my first ever character for MKX. And I think for MK11, John was just like, well, let's, this person did this character in MKX, let him do it again in MK11. He did Liu Kang in MKX, let him do it in MK11. And then like for MK11, I kind of realized like, yeah, maybe we should work around with a nunchuck. Also, let's bring back his pure Bruce Lee stance. And make him that more younger feeling one, because MKX he was kind of more of the older Liu Kang, so that's why I kind of dubbed down a little bit of his Bruce Lee stance, his neutral stance. And then for MK1, it's just like, okay, well, it's a new timeline. He's now a fire god. I kind of talked about, well, maybe I should do the Bruce Lee stuff, but then I realized, well, he's now more tame. He's a fire god. He recreated the timeline. Let's go with more of like a Pai Mei stance from Kill Bill, but he still has like the Bruce Lee sidekicks and snap punches, and obviously he's going to have his fireballs. Again, it was kind of like, it's a new timeline. Can we do a different twist on bicycle kick or Baraka chop chops or anything like that? And so that's why it's now the dancing kick instead of the bicycle kick. But it's.
Do you think if designers were that way, kind of like
I hate the dancing kicks. I wish you kept the bicycle kick.
And that all the characters were that way. Do you think we would see more of an evolution on the character as opposed to a clean slate feel?
I think so. Yeah. It's kind of funny because I was the designer of Jason, and then I was the designer of Terminator, and so a lot of
a surprise! It's the same animation.
No, actually, we mocapped new moves with new animations, but the moves were the same concept. Where
Wait,
it's
you mocap the exact same moves,
well,
like the big kicks and the whatever.
yeah, but with a different actor and a different style. Because like
But
you
it's the
notice,
same run. It's the same. It's literally it looks like the exact
well
same.
but that was my thinking was like if you play Jason and you pick up Terminator, you can easily kind of pick up, because Jason's not an MK11. So here's your chance to play a Jason-like character in MK11. Now, of course, I had to give him.
That kind of is hilarious that they, like, that they mocap the same. Like, I mean, at least that debunks like, hey, no, they don't just import an old animation file from another game. Like, here you go. Even though, they say that they haven't done that. Now thinking about it, there are certain cases where I think maybe there's been like that they've added a move or something, and they've done that. They actually have done that. Like, isn't it? There's something with the back three that Rain has that they added, like how that's like something he had in MK11 or something. Like, I'm not sure. Maybe I'm not remembering that right, but anyways, going on here, continue here for another minute or so.
My shotgun and all that stuff because of the gear system. Plus it's iconic in Terminator 2. And the thing is like, yes, Jason had a grabbed into a backbreaker, and so did Terminator, but Terminator's was a Canadian backbreaker in WWF. And, and Jason's was just a brutal whatever, because Jason doesn't know fighting style, so he just did a brutal backbreaker, while Terminator, who's a machine, kind of did more of a WWF move that's more technical, I guess. So
have you seen how people have reacted to characters looking like they just recycled animations?
Yeah, it is kind of funny because yes, like those moves are basically similar to each other, but they are completely mocap fresh with a fresh actor. Because sometimes you can't get the same actor for the next game because of scheduling and all that stuff. But I always just kind of felt like, again, if you play Jason and you like Jason and you play Terminator, you can kind of pick up on how Terminator's playing like. So then that way you actually, can do your tick throws and your command grabs and all that and the setups. And but to be honest, it's like we're actually not like, I never once saw where we went back and grabbed a file from MKX and just put that in MK1 and made that into a move. Now, you could still go back and like grab the motion track of it from mocapping and then make tweaks to it. So it's like a different spin or a different velocity or anything like that, like a Kano ball or whatever. But we don't just say like, okay, grab those files, those animation files from MK11 and import them into MK1 and boom, there you go. There's your fly kick.
Yeah. By the way, for all you, I want to share a John Edwards story in memory of the great.
All right, not going to get into story time with Tom at the moment. No offense to Tom or anything, but like I said, we're not trying to go through everything here. Really, there's only a handful of quick handful of other points that I'd like to go over here. More, key points of just interesting little things that was discussed. Think about right here. Back just a little bit.
I know everyone's been waiting a long time, so we've got a question here from Handcrafted. Thank you for the $9.99 donation. He said, "Can you ask him why Natara can't throw combo, please?"
You kind of have to ask Paulo because that's kind of like a Paulo decision in the end.
Okay, cool, no problem. It might be hard to ask Paolo, but
yeah, my idea with her though was she was supposed to control space, have a really good air game because of the wings. Even though I didn't want her to have wings this time around, and do more of like vampire mist teleports and stuff like that. Yes, kind of like Mira, who's my favorite character from Killer Instinct. But it is what it is. But she was supposed to be very command grab heavy. The blood spit move is, a WWF move where they spit like Gangrel did.
The great Muta. No, come on, you
Yeah.
got to take it to the. Come on, man.
Okay, yeah, it's Muta and also Takiri.
Tajiri, yeah.
Yeah, and but that was supposed to be her stunner move, so that opens you up so she could do her massive like combos, and because she has a lot of two-hitting starters and whatnot, and so she was supposed to be very like in your face pressure, and then also have an air game, which is why I gave her like the eight directional air dashes.
Okay, cool. I can see you guys super chatting questions for me. I'll answer them once blood count's gone, but we've only got 7 more minutes.
So yeah, that's where we was talking some more about how Natara was designed and stuff. I thought that I do like how she's designed, yet not completely. Like, she has this overhead, right? Like, she has a low that can be like a starter, like the double hitting low, and then but she doesn't have like a overhead that complements it very well. I didn't feel like maybe it does a little bit better now, like since you don't have to spend so much meter to get it, you don't have to spend meter to get the extension off of that one, dive kick special now. But yeah, I just don't. I feel like Natara is one of the worst characters in the game. Till maybe recently. Now she might, some people think she's one of the best. So, she's definitely better than she used to be. But it's all because she does crazy. It's not necessarily because of how she's designed. It's more because of how much crazy damage she gets, and she take people out in 2 touches, basically. But at the same time, she has the lowest health in the game, so a lot of characters can take her out in 2 touches as well. So it's fighting against Natara players, especially good ones that know what they're doing, can be very kind of crazy. But if you're patient and you know how to block stuff properly, like that Natara isn't going to, like, she isn't too hard to actually defend against, and that's like her weakness. It's like not only does she have low health, but she's actually easier to defend against than what she kind of has reputation for, because a lot of people actually just do get overwhelmed with her quick movements and her air movements and stuff, and getting faked out and whatnot. But I guess because Natara is one of the first characters I've learned in the game, I do actually like playing her. I just don't play her very much, and haven't. It's been some time since I have played her, because I didn't feel like she was very good, and I do wish she was more designed like how BloodCount was envisioning, though. But we're gonna be jumping up ahead, like far ahead, because like I said, this is actually, we're focusing on BloodCount's stuff. He left and then he ended up returning about right here, if I'm not mistaken.
Of them are more, you have more room to be creative than MK1. And maybe BloodCount's in here. BloodCount was a designer on the game. Maybe he can speak to this a little bit, because it feels to me like the developers since MK11 and with MK1 that they try to scale things back. I mean, earlier he said that the sentiment in the office was that MKX was just too crazy. So I don't know if you can add to that, BloodCount.
Oh, can you hear me?
Yeah, we can hear you.
Okay. Yeah, so like when things were being decided in the back about like what the mechanics would be for MK1, yeah, I personally wasn't expecting it to be an assist fighter with something called cameos. Once it started being fleshed out, with a working prototype and, kind of getting the rundown of how it's supposed to work, I still designed my characters to be complete characters as if they didn't need cameos. And then
Are you able to say what characters they were that you worked on?
well, Reiko was,
and yeah, I've heard. I was
yeah.
here whenever they were having that
It
conversation.
was Natara, Reiko, Baraka, General
Thank you,
Shao.
by the way.
And BloodCount also answer this man's dreams. Who designed Tremor and MKX? I wasn't there. For
John Edwards.
I knew it. John Edwards, man, we love him.
Yeah.
Damn.
Yeah, and so then I'm still trying to remember because again I haven't been there for 2 years.
Oh man.
But I went through all the crunch cycles and everything. And I just remember that being told like, oh yeah, the cameos are supposed to like provide the assist opportunity to extend your combo or to protect you from a projectile if that character doesn't have a projectile parry or just a standard teleport to get the hell out of the way. So there was also kind of discussions of like, oh, when you're designing this new character, make sure you have the opportunity for the player to like use the cameo to actually do that for the character.
Yeah.
And I was always like, well, I'm going to design the character like Reiko, how I want him to be designed and how he's going to play with his pressure and command grabs and combos and all that stuff. And then the cameo can just come in and like assist on keeping that extension going or yeah, maybe he puts an armor buff on him. So just in case if this guy breaks away, I can armor through a projectile and continue my pressure or do that low, takedown grab, the Krav Maga double leg takedown. So, but again, I was caught off by surprise that there was actually this cameo system because I actually did the character assist modifiers in Injustice 2, but those were just like projectiles that came off the screen. And then the idea for MK11 was like, oh, well, what happens if like you could actually call in Subzero and he can do a quick move and then exit out? And I forget what that mode was called or whatever, but that's where this system kind of I guess got more life was because of that. So yeah, again, I was one of the designers that was like, I'm going to design the characters as a complete character because we also had discussions too where it was just like, oh yeah, MK11 kind of felt like they weren't complete, where you had to like actually pick and choose your gear pieces to activate that special or to switch out this special. And we did see some of those comments of like, we just want a more complete fighter. And so that's what I thought we were going to do in MK1. And then when we started hearing about the cameos, it's like, well, then that kind of doesn't make it a complete fighter because there's 16 cameos. So your character could technically have 16 different variations. It's like, well, that's not really a complete character then. We're kind of going back to variations again, but in the form of a cameo. Now, again, at the end of the day, Paulo can go in there and, change a bunch of stuff or, how a move actually works. So then that way the cameo is actually viable for that character. Once he goes into his balance mode where, back then it would shut the door and sleep at the office. Like that's where his magic takes over.
And you would come in the morning.
Okay. So I have a little pushback here on BloodCount though. Complete characters and maybe like, he had like to make exceptions or Paulo made changes or something so it would fit the cameo system more. But I think one of the biggest complaints about there being a cameo system is that majority of the roster doesn't even feel like complete characters to begin with. And that's why, even if they added a 1v1 mode into MK1, I think most people would actually, I think a lot of people would try it out, but I think most people would actually jump back to playing cameo mode versus 1v1 mode because of so many characters being incomplete, actually like not having the full depth that they should have, that say in MK9 or MKX, for example. Even with the variations, MKX felt like the characters felt like that they had more depth and they felt complete, and they didn't feel like the variation system didn't really feel like it made them more fully complete. That they were already complete. Like you could, for example, you can play without picking any variation, and admittedly, some characters feel less complete compared to some others, but in general, they feel more complete than compared to the characters in MK1 without cameos right now. At least in my opinion. But anyways, let's see here. Next part I want to jump to. Let's see. Up here a bit. Go about right here.
Competitor issue.
Someone's just brought it up. This is kind of off topic to what you're talking about now, but is there ever been any talk in the office whilst you were there about doing a follow-up to Shaolin Monks?
I can neither confirm nor deny that.
Oh, damn. All right,
Yeah.
cool.
Rumors.
If y'all want to, if y'all want to, if y'all want some good sales,
Yeah, want some good sales? Maybe. I don't know if actually it would result in good sales. That's very debatable. If actually would, it could. It could definitely, but it might not. It'd be a risk. But I definitely would would love to see a Shaolin Monks 2 where just some kind of action adventure spin-off game. Doesn't have to be a Shaolin Monks game, per se. It could be something else. Even if they made a Special Forces game and a new Special Forces game, but like proper, and it was like a third-person shooter with Sonya and Jax, and maybe like some other characters like Cassie Cage, Jackie Briggs, Takeda, maybe Kenshi, Johnny Cage. You could have a lot of different characters in it, but Sonya and Jax being the main ones, and actually make a actual good Special Forces game, like that could actually work. That could be kind of cool if they're capable of making such a game in a good way like that. So I don't know if they'd have the right people right now to do that or not. But yeah, that right there though is very interesting. He cannot confirm nor deny. That means he's under NDA to not discuss things about what might be happening with that game, potentially. Meaning that could be something that actually maybe on the back burner, potentially. I think Ed wants it. I think it's maybe they have some prototypes. Maybe it's not in like full development, but they've developed some type of prototypes for some type of fire and ice Shaolin Monks, Scorpion Subzero type of game. Because I could definitely see Ed trying to push to do that, but WB being like, I don't know. So, but maybe we could get that next. That could be what we end up getting next, potentially. I don't know. Alright, next part I want to go to is quite the jump up here. About where? Somewhere around here. Yeah, I think it's somewhere about up here.
What was it?
So we've got one here from Patrick asking, was Chrome ever brought up?
I am the Chrome guy. I was pushing for that character for the longest time, and then T1000 came out.
Yeah. Do you know if the T1000 will be able to morph into Chrome?
I actually don't know. I was actually supposed to be the designer of it, but of course I was leaving. But I did have a working design document, and I didn't really have any of that in there. I was just like focusing more on what he can form and how he can parry and all that stuff. Now, did they keep any of those ideas? Probably not, but we'll see.
Okay.
But that's probably as close as you're gonna get to Chrome and MK.
That's such a shame. That is such a shame.
but that's interesting there that he pushed for Chrome actually internally, so Chrome has been pushed for internally. That is interesting. But then we get in the T1000, and T1000 is going to be basically what Chrome could have been, and potentially the closest that we'll get to it. Maybe not. I mean, if T1000 goes over big in MK1, which maybe it won't because of how the state of MK1 is, but maybe it will. Let's assume T1000 goes over big in MK1 and ends up being like one of the most played characters or something like that, right? What if that influences them for like the next Mortal Kombat game? Like, hey, let's go ahead and bring that Chrome character, create that Chrome character, and it can play like T1000, but it's our own Mortal Kombat character. And I wonder if they'll have some Chrome reference with T1000 in MK1. Maybe his ending will be like he fucking turns into Chrome or something, and he's gonna be Chrome in the Chrome of MK1. And like the T1000 actually stays like a Mortal Kombat character moving forward as Chrome, though, like taking on the moniker of Chrome. Like that would be actually awesome. I really hope that's the ending now. I'm actually looking forward to that, because that would be pretty sick if they, like the arcade ending, tower ending for T1000 and MK1 is something where like blah 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 because of this and that, he's stuck in this new realm, he decides he's going to takes on the identity of Chrome, and you see him like shed his like that cop look from his like his T1000 look, and he just goes into like a new, like a different type of look that's like, oh, here's that's like a concept art for Chrome basically. Like that would be sick. And then like moving forward, we get like Chrome in the next game, and like, oh, it's the T1000 still, but he's called Chrome, and he's never referenced as T1000 like ever again, but he actually is that T1000. Like that would be pretty crazy, and like kind of cool, a cool way to bring that character actually into fruition, in my opinion. Anyways, just a couple more parts real fast I want to go over here. Somewhere around here.
Where's about this ninja Pink Floyd or something like that? Were you guys in cahoots of trying to create a character like that in Mortal Kombat?
I think that's one of the things I can't really discuss because of non-disclosure agreements.
Uh-oh. Never
Yeah.
mind. Never mind. Never mind. Well. I mean, it's
So yeah, alright, there's Pink Floyd. We know Pink Floyd is coming. Apparently, it seems to be. Looks like he's going to be coming with the Conan the Barbarian update. So here this next week, hopefully we can try to find Pink Floyd and fight him. Like, I don't know, the requirements aren't quite known. Super, the YouTuber that's shown that has some early access to the build that's coming out next week, he's showed proof that like, hey, if I activated the fight, yeah, it didn't actually get me to the fight, but he made Floyd appear on the screen, like it saying Floyd. You most likely have already seen what I'm talking about. So that, yeah, it's gonna be kind of interesting. It's finally just, have a little fun figuring that out, because stuff like that is fun to me, like figuring out secrets and whatnot. I just don't understand why if it's something they say like, oh, that's always been there in the game, that's bullshit, because it like, I don't know, something weird's going on if they say that. Like, I don't know why they would say it's been there from the beginning, because obviously it hasn't. But anyways, let's go on. One final part towards the end here, actually. About somewhere right here.
I've always argued for the fireballs clashing thing, and I guess we can end this part of the discussion on that, passing it over to blood count. What is the? I don't know if you guys have discussed it in the office, but how do you guys feel about fireballs clashing in Mortal Kombat? Because it's pretty much the only game. Even Arena Fighters have it, Smash has it. Other games that are not really fighting games, but they have like fighting game mechanics in them, like Yakuza or Devil May Cry, they all have fireballs that clash. But Mortal Kombat is the only game I've ever seen where you're shooting plasma across the screen and they're just passing through each other. And it feels like it dilutes the gameplay. What is the design philosophy behind that?
I have no idea. I've always wanted them to clash. It makes sense, like especially if a fireball and an ice ball are coming at each other. Plus, it also kind of keeps it fair a little bit. Like you threw your projectile, I threw my projectile. It's now canceled out. We're back to neutral. Um, that's probably a Apollo question, just like with flip stance. So
Yeah. Oh yes, flip stance. What? Why is there a flip stance button exactly?
I have no idea. I remember when I started playing Injustice 1. Well, actually, I played MK9 at my first studio before working at NetherRealm. And I remember hitting the button and seeing him switch stance. I was like, oh, well, maybe I now do a different ender or a different starter. And I was like, wait, no, it's doing the same thing. And
Yeah.
why
Because
is this?
in Virtua Fighter, when you flip stance or when you change what direction the camera's looking at you, that you have different combos that
Yeah,
work
same.
different ways, and that's what I assumed Mortal Kombat was going to have. And then I flipped stance and nothing happened. I was like, surely there's not a useless button on this controller right now.
Yeah, it's also like For Honor. If you swap stance with your weapon, you actually change your enders and your starters and the way you perform that combo chain with that weapon. So that's what I always thought. I mean, there's a character I can't really talk about from MK11, but I'll just say that he was probably going to be the first character that actually would utilize the flip stance it the right way.
Yeah.
But that character didn't come to fruition. And
Yeah.
so again, that's like another legacy thing that just happens to keep making it in every single game, and it's just like, why is this here?
Yeah. That is a shame.
Cosmetic.
Yeah, it's a waste of it's a waste of a button, but
So here's why I can actually answer, at least to a degree, both questions there. First off, why why don't projectiles in Mortal Kombat clash? Sometimes they do under certain circumstances, like, oh, this enhanced fireball that now destroys this one, other ones that goes through it or something, whatever. Like sometimes there's certain things that do clash, but generally most of the time the projectiles don't clash; they go through each other, right? And you trade. The answer is because of Street Fighter, because they wanted to be different from Street Fighter, because they wanted Mortal Kombat to stand out. They figured to stand out from Street Fighter, they wanted it to be as different from Street Fighter as they could be. So, like, really, the inspiration of, like, Mortal Kombat's design in a lot of ways is to be opposite of Street Fighter, and that's it. And it's to be opposite of Street Fighter. The reason why they wanted to be opposite of it is to stick out from it instead of imitating it and blending in with everybody else imitating Street Fighter. So they wanted to stick out, be their own thing. And you know what? That strategy was very successful. Way back in '92 and '93 and '95, you know, it's something that has worked for the franchise and it's become, you know, projectiles trading and going through each other. It's just something that design choice was to be, you know, was made to be different from Street Fighter, but nowadays it's more because that's just the way Mortal Kombat's always been, and it's more of that's the Mortal Kombat way. Like, no, this isn't Street Fighter. In Mortal Kombat, they've trade. That's the Mortal Kombat way. That's just the way it is. It's not about is it better or not. It's not about what's better or not. It's just that that's the Mortal Kombat way. That's how it is. That's how Ed sees it, and that it sets them apart from being Street Fighter. And if they changed it all of a sudden so that everything does clash, that he's probably afraid that they would get accused of trying to be more like Street Fighter, which he doesn't want to be. He wants Mortal Kombat to be its own thing. He probably has a lot of pride how the in the story modes, and how story modes have in Mortal Kombat have set the standard that all other fighting games have been basically forced to follow in suit behind what Mortal Kombat has done in that regard. And then, anyways, to answer the other thing with flip stance, so in MK9, there's actually a technical reason why in flip stance, and maybe it's not 100% confirmed, maybe this was more speculation, I can't remember for sure, but this seems to be what the reason for flip stance in MK1 is, or not MK1, but MK9, where it originated. There's certain things, like certain combos and such, that basically certain combos that you can only do when you're facing a certain direction. For example, I remember, the only one I can really remember off the top of my head, and I don't think it was like a huge problem for most like optimal type combos and whatnot, but it was still a problem for certain combos and shit, right? The one that I remember though vividly, or pretty vividly, is Nightwolf. And I remember it's the reason why I decided not to play Nightwolf anymore, was because it was like, well, I have to be sure that I'm flip stance, I think it was forward. Otherwise, if I was flip stance with my back facing, that was back facing, then when I went for my optimal combo, a certain move, like mid combo, would always whiff no matter what. And I remember labbing it over and over, and I figured out, like, oh shit, it only whiffs on that stance. So I would have to flip stance. I'd do the combo. Say I do the combo, right? At the end of the combo, well, I have my back turned now. So it actually would have to flip stance, like, quite a bit while playing Nightwolf to make sure that I wouldn't miss this part in the combo. And it was actually, like, the third or fourth hit in the combo, something like that. So it wasn't, like, way deep into the combo. It was in the beginning parts. And because of that, I just didn't, I stopped playing Nightwolf. It really irritated me, it bugged me that I had to do that. Instead, I'd play, characters I didn't have to worry about what way I was. But that flip stance has continued on, and so it felt like it was there for, like, oh, here's a lazy, we have something fucked up here with some combos, certain combos, and hit detections, right? And we haven't been able to figure it out, so we have to give the player at least some control of being able to flip your stance to compensate for having this problem at all to begin with, until we can figure it out. But then in MKX, MK11, and now in MK1, it's something that's stayed all the way through, and I don't understand why. I don't get why. I mean, I think it's because they just don't have any use for the button, and they come up with uses for the button, like it's kind of like an extra button, so they just kind of kept it because it's just like whatever. Or some certain people on the team, maybe they like trolling with it, flip stancing as a taunt or something. I don't know, but yeah, it's whatever. If they wanted to, they could just make characters always facing forward. Like, I don't know, I don't understand how that's not why they don't just do that instead. And but I don't know, because that'd be easy enough to design. That's definitely not hard to implement. I know from my own personal experience that that's not something that's that difficult to implement. To have something be always facing forward, so that when you jump over one side or after you do a combo, even if it has you on that you know, it has you always where you end up facing forward at the end of it, and things, and you know, that way you don't have to worry about the back being turned or whatever. Like, but I don't even mind the back being turned in it, so it's just you don't need the flip stance. It's just whatever. But maybe it's there just in case there is some kind of issue like that they're worried or something. I don't know. Just in case you need it for something certain or specific. That's a super situational or something. I don't know. The other thing that I hate that's been in every game from 9, that's in 9, X11, and 1, is how throws work. How you grab them. They didn't even talk about this, I don't think, at any point. So I would have this be a question for BloodCount. This is one question I'd have for him. Even though he'd probably say, I imagine that, well, he doesn't really know, but it's probably a Apollo decision. That's Apollo thing. With the whole throws, how you got to throw tech, you got to guess if you're getting thrown forward or back, and you got to press the right button to throw tech. And I just find throw tech very, I don't like, personally, I don't like how it feels. I don't like how you have to let go of block. You can't be blocking to throw tech. Like, I'm blocking, so I'm holding a block, like, oh, I got grabbed, and now I'm trying to tech, like, oh, wait, I can't tech because I was still holding the block button. That kind of irritates me. It's just, I kind of I've always hated how the throws work in Mortal Kombat, to be honest, like that. But I've never hated it as much until MK11, and now especially in MK1, to be honest. I feel like throws is the worst in MK1 compared to, it's like somehow it just feels worse, the throw game just feels worse in MK1 than compared to MK11, X, or 9. But that's pretty much the end of this that I really wanted to go over. So we're going to cut the stream here. I planned on playing some Mortal Kombat X this morning, yet didn't get around to it. Ended up having things come up, things not going as according as planned this weekend, but it's all whatever. So we got to do this a long stream here, but I got to get off of here now. I'm going to try to play some Mortal Kombat X here tonight and stream it on the channel. Probably play some Reptile, maybe try to get try to shake my rust off playing with some Ermac as well, perhaps. And yeah, we'll get my MKX on here in a little bit later tonight, most likely. If not tonight, then probably tomorrow morning. But we'll see which one I do. I'm not sure. But thanks for anyone that's tuned in and watched this. I just think a lot of this stuff was interesting stuff to go over, some interesting insights, some interesting newsworthy information. I feel like some deconfirmations and confirmations of stuff like how this wasn't Injustice 3 ever, actually, despite how there's things about it that feel like it could have been Injustice 3 originally at the very start, but supposedly it was not, which actually does not surprise me. It does and doesn't. And just so much many other things. All the interesting little tidbits like Chrome, the Chrome and T1000. How T1000 is going to be, is as close as what we're going to get to Chrome, and just my idea of how they could actually make T1000 legitly part of the Mortal Kombat lore, and by turning T1000 into Chrome in his arcade ending in this game, MK1, like that would be pretty cool. And then he's Chrome in the future, titles of Mortal Kombat. But anyways, I'm gonna get out of here. take a break for a while, see if we can do some Mortal Kombat X tonight. If not, we'll get it done in the morning tomorrow for sure. Alright, peace out.